Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is another episode of The Watch. The GOOCH and I are here to talk about the beta test weekend, patch notes, crazy casting. There was an invitational over on Fishstick's Twitch channel that was done today. 8 teams, 1 day, 0 prizes.
I would love to catch a fish stick.
Oh, dude, just to catch a fish stick, like already
That would
done,
be
just ready to go. But it's so convenient. It really doesn't get any more convenient than that.
For all my Mitch Hedberg fans, though.
Just give me a box and put me in a boat, and I will deliver them to the store for you. Rest in peace, Mitch Hedberg. But I'm not alone, guys. As always, the GOOCH is sitting with me here. And the GOOCH is drinking a very special beverage because he had an awesome day, and we will talk about that soon. But GOOCH, how are you, my friend? Welcome back to the show.
I am on Cloud 9. Not sponsored, but call us.
Call us! That's because we're incredible at everything we do, and Cloud9 should pick us up. That's really it.
Sure.
That's it. End of
Sounds good to
discussion.
me.
End of discussion. So it is the beta test weekend. They sent out a ton of invites.
They did. It seems like every one of my friends' list is playing now, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I logged in.
At least until Sunday.
Until Sunday. No, Monday morning at 9 a.m.
And then it's back to us.
Yeah, suckers. I had people mad at me because I made a tweet. And I was like, I'm sitting here and everybody's all excited that they're in for the weekend. Guess what? Screwballs, I got in day one.
Oh, right.
And they're like, well, we got to rub it in.
Finally, for the first time in my life, I am part of the cool kid club.
Yes, I've always wanted to be a cool kid. But this weekend we did get a patch as well. The patch came out and there is some major changes to a couple of characters. There's a couple buffs, a couple of nerfs. But first up is Genji.
So, yeah.
What do you think of the Genji change? Well, let's talk about it. What is the Genji
Initially,
change?
it sounds like it's like, oh, whatever. They just moved his so what it is Swift Strike, which is a shift, the thing when he dashes forward and does damage to people. Before it did a moderate amount of damage. I don't know the numbers on it. A moderate amount of damage, and then had a damage over time aspect to it.
Right.
Afterwards, and the thing about that ability is if someone dies from it, whether the initial directed damage or the damage over time, the cooldown gets refreshed. So you can get chains with it and go like bam, 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 bam.
Correct.
Generally, maybe like 1 or 2. Obviously, if you get like some crazy super play, you can do more than that. So what they did is the impact damage, the initial damage when you hit someone, was slightly increased, and then the damage over time was completely removed. I'm assuming that the damage over time, the amount that the damage over time did was basically they just added that to the impact damage. So I feel is actually much more significant than it seems because then it's all front load damage. You get the kill sooner than you otherwise would have, and because you got the kill sooner, it has a higher uptime. So this increases Genji's kill potential, and this increases Genji's mobility, both one in the same.
Right.
And that is so important in this game. I mean, imagine if they lowered Tracer's cooldown on her zip or on her rewind.
Exactly.
You know, it's like holy crap, that's actually a really, really, really big deal.
Right.
So it's I actually think it's a really big deal. I was playing against this amazing Genji. I don't remember his name. He's on one of the competitive teams, who we'll talk about later. But the dude was wrecking me. It got me really bad. But it was insane because he was just always. It seemed like his Swift Strike was always up because it's just all front loaded damage now. It's all damage over time because he literally he would do the front, the right click, the frontal 3 stars.
Right.
And if one hit you, then a melee, then a Swift Strike, and that's like 250 damage. Right. So any of the offensive or like defensive heroes, and that's a dead person. Yeah. That's insane. So I actually think it's a much more significant buff than I first realized. And I think Genji was already really good, and now I think he's just he's going to be a premier hero.
Absolutely.
Assuming he doesn't get any changes, which it's beta, we don't know. But as is right now, I think he's one of the best offensive heroes in the game right now.
I would not disagree. I jumped in and played Genji with the change. And I had a couple people say, oh, the dot was so important, the dot was so important. The dot was okay, but this just gives you, like you said, more uptime. If you get a kill, and you're more likely to get a kill now off of the initial strike than the dot, you can instantly cast it again. I was getting triple kills left and right the other night because of this change. So I personally am a huge fan of it. I enjoy Genji. Genji's a great hero. So I definitely welcome this change.
A lot of fun.
But there's another change that came out this week that have some people a tad bit upset, and that is the Widowmaker nerf. So scope shots will now consume 3 bullets instead of 1, which is not a big deal. That still gives her 10 100%
She still has
scope
plenty of ammo.
shots.
Yeah.
But the scope shot damage has been slightly reduced. And slightly reduced is so terrible. Give me a number, and I'll give you an example here. So previous to this nerf, a skilled Widowmaker could kill a tank in 2 headshots. Each headshot was worth 50%, 100% health. They are dead in 2. They have raised that now. Instead of 2, it takes 3 headshots.
That's a hat trick.
That is a hat trick. And some people are like, oh, that's not a big deal. Landing 2 headshots is
hard enough.
Skill. Now you want me to land a 3rd one?
Yeah, that's actually...
It's a huge nerf.
Big deal.
And it went from... I want to say it went from 3 or 4 body shots to 5 or 6 body shots to take out heroes. So the slightly reduced damage...
Warriors specifically.
Warriors specifically.
For clarification,
right.
Warriors.
And that's because I play a lot of Warriors.
You can still kill Tracer really easily. Don't worry.
You can still one-shot Tracers. I mean, there's certain heroes that it really hasn't affected. But for Warriors, it's definitely affected. It's hurt her damage overall.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of sad about. I hated skilled Widowmaker on the other team, but I love them on mine. And I know a lot of Widowmakers are upset. But they will adjust. This change could be reverted, because we have seen that happen in the past. We do have some Mercy changes that came as well. Gooch, I'm going to let you talk about the Mercy changes.
Wasn't any too big of a deal. They reverted the cast time on Resurrect, which I have no problem with whatsoever.
Right.
I think cast time on Resurrect does not really affect it any which way or the other. But I personally think that Resurrect is too strong of an ultimate.
No.
I think it's insane. That her ultimate alone makes Mercy just like the go-to healer support in competitive.
Right.
We'll talk about that a little bit later because there's more to it than that.
Right.
But Resurrect is insanely good. So they got rid of that, so that wasn't too big of a deal. The big thing was the damage boost beam. It had a bonus damage reduced. Do you know the numbers on it? I don't.
I don't know the numbers on it. I have not done.
Obviously, that's a big deal because that was one of her big things when you pair her up with a Widow. Widowmaker and Mercy was like absurdly annoying.
It was one-shot kill for most people.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be 100% charge. It was literally just Widowmakers going pow 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 pow.
Right.
So that is an indirect. So Widowmaker got a direct nerf through the damage reduction and also a little bit of an indirect nerf because now the synergy with Widowmaker and Mercy isn't as strong as it used to be.
Right.
And obviously Pharah as well. I don't think it's going to affect Pharah as much because Pharah was more about just, Pharah's going to still be really, really strong and whatnot. But overall, it's a slight tune down of Mercy. I like it. Big damage boost things are things that are really kind of like a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Where either it's way overboard or it's, not good enough. And there's definitely a happy ground, but they got to work around to see making sure it's not too strong.
Right.
It's not imbalanced or anything like that.
Right.
So overall, I'm happy with those changes.
Yeah, and
I think it's pretty good. I'm very happy with the Widowmaker. The Genji one, I'm not going to say that it was too much. I haven't played enough, and we'll see what the consensus is from the more competitive players.
Right.
But the Genji change, I think, is the most, in my opinion, is the most. Well, no, the Widowmaker one I think is the most impactful one, and right below it is the Genji change.
Yeah.
Is the most impactful one.
Yeah.
There was a change to Mei as well.
But May's change is kind of like we had the same issue with Widowmaker, where Widowmaker was once you cast Widowmaker's ultimate, her ultimate would instantly start regenerating power. And Mei had the same issue. Whenever you cast May's Blizzard, you could cast it, and she would gain the ability to use it while her previous Blizzard was still active. So they removed that. Mei can no longer gain ultimate charge when Blizzard is active. So we've seen that done before. It's not that big of a deal.
Because the Blizzard lasts, 4 seconds? 5 seconds?
It's not crazy
long.
It's
not a huge deal. When
you looked at Reapers was major because it was constantly up. Whenever I had a Reaper on my team, you constantly had vision. So that change was welcome. This one's just kind of like, oh, okay. I didn't know it was needed. I had no idea what was happening. But
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know you could get charge off of it while it was up. I didn't even know that. I was like, oh, okay. I kind of wish I exploited that earlier, but
right.
Okay.
So there's that change, and that's really it for the patch notes. We did get some player UI changes. The rating system was put in on Tuesday or Wednesday, and people were confused how it worked when rating a player because it did not give you the positive, neutral, or negative.
Right.
So they just added that. So that was really the only changes that came. But again, it is the beta test weekend. Lots of invites went out. As you said,
Oh, yeah.
you log in and you have tons of friends on. I had 45 friends playing Overwatch last night, and it's normally 3. So that's fantastic. It's great to see everybody in. Everybody I've talked to has really been hyped about the game. Some people have even said it's better than I expected. I didn't know what the hype was until I got in to play it. All positive feedback,
Exactly.
which is fantastic. I'm excited about that. With all of the players in, though, Gooch, have you seen an issue with, because we talked about on our last episode, matchmaking? Have you seen any matchmaking issues? Have you noticed anything that could be worked on?
Of course. When you have a limited player base of those who got in with the initial invite, plus the couple other waves that have happened since initial release, and all of a sudden you just add however many, I have no idea what the number is. I'm assuming
it's
tens of thousands.
Yeah,
it has to be tens of thousands, maybe even more than that. To the pool who are all neutral, then they're gonna be, kind of like splattered into your games. You know, like my matchmaking. I like to think my matchmaking is pretty high right now because I get matched with I get matched with Seagull, I get matched with other competitive players, Tailspin from Team Hubris, things like that. And whenever that happens, I'm like, hey, I'm on the same level as them. I'm not on the same level as them. But anyways, so that obviously is going to affect my gameplay experience.
Right.
I've been binge playing the game, as most people have who are in right now. Since it's been released, I have a lot of experience, and then you get all of a sudden new people who don't understand game mechanics, don't understand how the heroes work, and are ultimately just trying to figure out the game and have fun. And unfortunately, when you combine, the experienced player with the non-experienced player into a match on both sides of the team, it really affects the gameplay for everyone involved. For both the new person who is like, why am I getting completely destroyed right now? And the person who is like, why is this person on my team? He doesn't know what he's doing,
right?
Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it was. I had a couple frustrating games where I was, I'm always trying to be helpful. I always try to stay away from the negativity and whatnot. I always try to, hey man, maybe you should instead of having offensive bastion at the last checkpoint in Watchpoint Gibraltar, which is like the hardest one to take and has the longest run back, go for a Soldier 67 because he's a I think Soldier 76 Soldier 76 is a great starter hero.
Yeah,
because he has a very familiar to anyone who's played first-person shooters. Oh, I have a an automatic weapon and a rocket and
a sprint.
and I turn into an aimbot.
Right.
Hey, cool. That's a good starter hero. Things like that. But then of course they go, no, I want to play Tracer, even though they have no idea how Tracer works and they die constantly and things like that. So
I ran into
there is
a
some
lot
frustration
of that,
involved. There is some frustration involved, but I am understanding of why it's happening. I know why it's happening. I know it's only going to be temporary for all parties involved.
Right.
So I'm not. I don't make too big a deal of it. I'm just dealing with it and trying to enjoy the game as much as possible.
Yeah, and I've personally experienced some strange bugs this week. I had one where after every game my screen would black out, and I say this week, it's been 2 days.
It sounds like me every weekend. No.
Yeah.
Maybe in college. Maybe in
college. But I'd have blackout moments where all of a sudden my screen would black out, and I would have to Control-Alt-Delete, open the task manager, and shut the game down that way because I could not adjust. A couple posts on the forums about it, nothing major. But then last night I'm playing. I had been streaming for about 3 hours. I took a break, came back on, and I was playing for about 15 minutes. And I had this weird frames per second bug. Instead of getting frames per second, I was getting frame per second.
Singular.
Singular frame per second. I was at 6 frame per second, and I could not fix it. I changed my graphics to low. I restarted the client. I restarted the PC. I stopped streaming. I turned everything off but the game, and I was still getting this weird bug. Some people are saying it's a memory leak. Some people are saying it's optimization. There's all of the crazy theories out there, but it seemed to be a large number of people are actually affected by said bug. So hopefully we can get that figured out here soon, because 6 frames per second it's not an enjoyable experience. I have seen PowerPoints run much smoother than my game last night, which was pretty disheartening, but what can you do, really?
Little side story. I had a professor, and he was, he's sworn by the PowerPoint. And even though there are many, like research PhD educators who show that PowerPoints are not good for teaching, and he swore by him. He was like, PowerPoints are the best, and it was just nothing but this boring, stale PowerPoint presentation. And I presented to him with a little data, and he wasn't happy about it. And, you know,
you're one of those students. So. You were one of those students.
Absolutely. If you're a professor, if you have a PhD, if I have to call you doctor, okay, that leads me to believe you have some sort of intellectual capability to be receptive to feedback and receptive to the scientific process. And this person was not. But anyways,
I'm sure he was thrilled to have you in the class every day, Gooch. That son of a bitch is the one who told
I
me
am a bona fide smartass. I was genetically predisposed to it. Everyone in my family is a smartass. But I'm not Italian, which yeah.
We love all Italians. We love every single one of you. Not all of you are assholes. But guys, so the big news. Okay, we've gone off here, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring it back. We're gonna bring it back in incredible fashion. The Gooch did something today.
Oh my lord!
He did something kind of rad.
So was this 1992 in California?
It's rad, not the greatest word in the world. What are you talking about? Don't you knock my vocabulary, jerk. So what the Gooch did today, as I said earlier, there was a tournament, and the Gooch was invited to cast said tournament. So, Gooch, tell us about that, my friend.
So it was, as far as I could gather, the first of its kind, a Overwatch tournament. It was invitational, and it was strictly just kind of a off-the-cuff sort of thing. Hey, guys, let's do this. No one's done it yet. Everyone's hyped about it. We all want to see competitive Overwatch. Let's get this together. There's no prize pool involved. It was just simply some bragging rights and whatnot. Right. It was done by Fishsticks, who is I believe he's the marketing manager over at Twitch.
Yep.
And as well as Ash Joshi, who is someone who was really, for those of you who watched a lot of StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty, was involved in like IPL. He worked for Blizzard for a period of time. He casted significantly with them and whatnot. So involved in the Twitch and overall esports, Blizzard esports. Very familiar with that. Great guy. And also ZP, who is the most well-known Heroes of the Storm streamer in pretty much all of Heroes of the Storm. Him and I have known each other because I came from Heroes of the Storm. And he originally was going to cast with Zoya, who is the coach and captain of Tempo Storm's Heroes of the Storm team. And I guess he had internet connections or something like that. Excuse me. And was like, hey, man, I need a co-caster. Hit me up. And I literally was like giddy like a little schoolgirl, man. Ever since the day I saw Dustin Browder, release Overwatch, and the day that I saw everything about it, because I, without going too much into this, the reason why I'm into PC gaming is Team Fortress Classic, and Quake as well, which is what the original Team Fortress came from. That sort of, I guess what you can call an arcade team-based first-person shooter.
Right.
And that is and I've always with Team Fortress Classic, I go back and play Team Fortress 2 and whatnot, and it makes me feel like I'm a child again, because it makes me feel happy and warm. And I have never been more excited about any title, any game ever in my life than I was for Overwatch. And to be able to cast the first of its kind sort of tournament in the capacity that I did, and I had nothing but great receptive feedback.
Right.
It was an amazing opportunity. That I know it seems a little corny, like, oh, it was only it wasn't for money. Maybe there's only about 1,500 people watching. The grand scheme of things, when Elahheim almost had 90,000 people watching them. It wasn't that big of a deal. But to me personally, that was almost like a personal achievement that I got to cast Overwatch, and it was an amazing experience for me. And don't get me wrong, the casting was subpar. Okay, the casting was subpar because no one that can go into this game and knock it out of the park. Right. You know what I mean? It was a different beast than what I'm used to. I'm used to casting Heroes of the Storm, which is a very fast-paced MOBA, and I thought Heroes of the Storm was fast-paced. Holy crap, dude! It is just non-friggin' stop. Yeah. Especially when it came down to like Overwatch, or not over. Oh my lord, overtime.
Overtime, yeah.
Oh my lord, it was just like these team fights that seemed to last for minutes at a time. Like, I mean, we saw like multiple Lucio ults because they would just get, without dying, we get multiple Lucio ults and resurrects and constant contention right on top of the point. The moment the enemy defending team is not contesting it, they lose, but someone was always on it. There was this one amazing play from a Mei, who I won't say which game it was, but a Mei jumped in on top of the point, dropped her ult right on top. It was on a it was on King's Row,
Right.
right on top of the victory point for the payload. Mei ran in there, jumped on top of it, dropped her ult, ice blocked, and everyone obviously you can't kill Mei, but Mei was still contesting the point. She was the only person alive.
That's
her whole entire team was
fantastic.
dead. Goes in there, the blizzard like froze a whole bunch of people. She managed to keep herself alive until the rest of her team came back. It was insane. So it was an amazing thing. For those of you guys who missed it, it was put on by, like I said, Fish Sticks and Ask Joshi. And ZP and I were kind of like the secondary channel for the other games and whatnot. But the fact that these competitive teams have only been scrimming, granted they've probably been binge scrimming,
right.
for like 3 weeks?
3 weeks now, 4 weeks
yeah.
now. Yeah.
The level of play that they were already at is mind-blowing.
Oh, it's insane.
Absolutely mind-blowing. The strategies they have. So what I want to talk about a little bit, now that I've done with that whole, soapbox, is the meta, and I'm going to use this very, very lightly, guys. There is no concrete meta right now.
Correct.
Strictly because, A, no one has any idea what they're doing. Let me rephrase that. Everyone has very little idea what they're doing. And B, in beta, things are going to change. They're going to nerf heroes, buff heroes, change maps, new maps, constantly.
Right.
So everything is subject to change. But the standard right now in the competitive environment, from what I can gather, and this is verifiable through many different people I've spoken with, so I don't seem like I'm not completely talking out of my butt, is and the standard, quote unquote, is double warrior, double support, and 2 DPS, whether that be a Widowmaker, not like strictly offensive heroes, but you know what I mean,
a damage dealer of some kind.
Exactly. Like Junkrat, for example.
Right.
He's defense, but he actually does a certain amount of damage. And that seems to be the standard. I think I'm about to sneeze. Hold on.
Gesundheit.
I'm all right. I think I held it back.
Okay.
That seems to be the standard. And we talked about the Mercy buff and whatnot. And I mentioned how Resurrect, we'll talk about that more, and now we're finally coming back to that point. Every single team had a Mercy 100% of the time. Because Resurrect is so pivotal in an organized competitive environment.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's absurdly powerful to the point where if you don't have a Mercy on your team, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage from the get-go.
Right.
Period. So that was one thing I noticed as well, besides the standard compositions.
Who was the top warrior you saw? Because in my mind, I feel like Reinhardt.
Winston.
Okay.
Reinhardt and Winston.
Okay.
It all depended on the map. Some teams favor. I mean, we saw double Winston a couple times. We saw one. I'm not going to spoil it, but we saw one match that had more than 2 Winstons.
Yes.
It had a lot of Winstons.
That's fantastic.
It had an absurd amount of Winstons, and it actually won the initial objective.
Oh my goodness!
For you guys that want to see it, go to ZP's channel and go to his previous broadcast because it is worth the watch. Which it was Team Overwatch Jackets versus Not Enigma was the match. Anyways. We'll try to put like a link in the description for it or something like that. But I completely lost my train of thought about
that. We were talking tanks. We were talking
Mercy.
Mercy.
Talking tanks. So yeah, Reinhardt and Winston were the go-to ones. We occasionally saw a Roadhog. We occasionally saw Zarya.
Right.
So all the warriors were pretty much covered throughout. And also a lot of D.Va as well, actually. Now that I think about it, there's a lot of D.Va as well. So all the warriors, I think, were fairly representative, fairly evenly, with Reinhardt. Reinhardt and D.Va were probably the 2 most popular ones.
Okay.
And then Winston was peppered in there, and Zarya was peppered in there.
Okay.
As far as offense goes, offense seemed really. I mean, it was. We saw Reapers, we saw McCrees, we saw Tracers, we saw we saw Genjis. They were all well represented. I think the only class role that wasn't represented well was support, and it was literally mostly Lucio and Mercy.
Right.
Occasionally we would see a Zenyatta. Not a single Symmetra was ever picked. Not a single Symmetra was ever picked. And on defense, it was Widowmakers all the time. There was Widowmakers constantly, even with the nerf that we talked about.
Right.
We saw a Hanzo once, but it was not good. Not the Hanzo player that wasn't good, but it just didn't work out well in the situation. Bastions were only like, last ditch, holy crap, we need to hold this point, and there's only 5 seconds left, and we need to do something. That's the only time we ever saw Bastion. We never saw Tourborn. We saw Junkrat maybe 1 or 2 times. That's about it. So defense wasn't represented well. Symmetra was not represented at all ever, which I think is not
sad.
good.
I think that's not good. Yeah, she's a fantastic hero.
I know I've been talking a long time, but the thing about Symmetra is I feel like it's not because she's a bad hero.
Right.
I think it's because the teams haven't had time enough to adapt and create intricate enough strategies to play to her strengths.
Okay.
Like an offensive teleporter is absurdly powerful.
Oh, yeah.
But that is something that requires refined execution, refined planning. You really have to know what you're doing when you do something like that.
Right.
And I don't think the teams are there yet. And I think once the teams are there, that's like an offensive Symmetra on like a second control point when you're attacking will be insanely good. But
so
we'll see.
So this afternoon, you like you said, you saw Mercy basically 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You saw Lucio a lot, which I played Lucio. I'm not a support player by any means. I prefer my warriors. I prefer my damage dealers.
He's Spider-Man.
Lucio is one of my top 3 heroes right now. I played him a lot. His healing is absurd.
Yeah.
He heals everybody. It's not just a single heal. It's an AoE heal. When you use his E ability, it ups the healing around him. He's fantastic, but he also deals quite a bit of damage.
He does.
Do you feel like after watching, and I know this is so early on, and I'm probably going to get crap from Reddit for asking this, do you feel like we see some nerfs coming to Mercy's Resurrection? Do you feel like we're going to get some AoE healing nerfs to Lucio, or do you think it's still too early to tell?
I think Lucio is fine.
Okay.
I think, if anything, his damage might need a little tweaking.
Okay.
Maybe a slight decrease on his damage.
I will agree with that,
if
100%.
anything. Other than that, I think his healing, the rest of his kit, I think is perfectly fine.
Okay.
Because he is pretty squishy still.
He does a lot of damage. I can take out a lot of people.
Well, besides Zenyatta.
Zenyatta does a ton too. But
Zenyatta's weakness has no health.
Right.
So.
You have to have his E ability on a target to up his damage. There's a lot of things with Zenyatta to make it work. Lucio, you can just shoot at people and he still does a lot of damage. But then he gets that initial buff every 12 seconds when you use his E ability that ups his healing. So all of that comes into effect.
I think his heroic is balanced. The thing about Mercy's Resurrect is that's a sort of ability that you can't really tune that ability. You know what I mean? Like either it's super good or it's not useful at all. Well, either she's going to be picked 100% of the time or the 0% of the time because of her ultimate. And I mean, I am basing this off of my knowledge of a lot of MOBAs, and again, we've spoken about before how there's definitely a certain MOBA effect when it comes to decision making and gameplay design and whatnot. And I feel like that Resurrect either needs to be completely shelved for a completely different ultimate, or they're going to change it. Either it's going to remain insanely powerful, we're going to see Mercy 100% of the time on both teams, or they're going to nerf it to the point where we're never going to see Mercy ever.
You don't think they could add a player cap to it instead of resurrecting 5, it resurrects 3, like the 3 closest? Do you
even
that
then
would still
it would be insanely powerful.
But it would be better than resing 5 because I've seen full 5-man resurrections with that ult, and that clinched the game.
Yes, that would be a step in the right direction. But the thing is in all the competitive games, and I think in any organized environment, that you're never going to get a 5-man resurrection off. Because if the rest of your team is dead, generally teams focus the Mercy first.
Correct.
That is like the number one target in most team fights was the Mercy.
Right.
Because of the fact that she has the resurrection.
Right.
So I think that, capping out of 3 members would be good, but realistically, whether there's a cap or not, I think you're only going to see 2 to 3-man resurrections in competitive play anyways.
Right.
So I still don't think that would do much good as far as affecting her strength. I think that maybe, I don't know, again, it's beta, there's a lot of stuff.
There's so much
who knows what will happen.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I think that Resurrect is just, there's no counter to it. That's one thing I'm sad about it. Every heroic generally has a counter to it. There's no counter to it whatsoever. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Like, what's the counter to it? Not kill them?
You leave everyone alive?
You know what I mean?
That's a terrible counter. That sounds like a really bad decision.
So I'm personally not a fan of the Resurrection to begin with. I think that I really wish maybe they could give her something a little bit maybe utilitarian based instead of just a straight, like, hey, you're dead, doesn't matter. Like you can literally just tell your teams, hey guys, I have res up, just go do silly things and die. Don't worry about it because you'll be fine.
You're gonna be
and I think that's not very good for the overall health of the game.
Okay. So there definitely, we've seen some changes that need to come.
Yeah.
We've had a fantastic week with Overwatch, guys. We are going to end the episode on that note. Congratulations to the GOOCH. Round of applause, my friend. Congratulations to you casting the first event.
Great.
That is so fantastic. Hopefully more casting in your future. Guys, we'll be doing another episode of The Watch next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. We have to fully sit down and flesh out a schedule. The next one, we're probably going to start moving into a live format very soon, so we can get listener feedback and talk to people in chat. And change this up a little bit instead of doing 40-minute shows on YouTube. Of course, everything will still be transitioned over to YouTube for those of you who have missed it. But that's going to be it for us. Gooch, where can the wonderful people of the internet find you, my friend?
You can find me on the social medias, Twitter, handles Shane Goocher, on Twitch at Shane Goocher Gaming, and I will be streaming pretty much the moment we end this episode, Notch.
Woohoo!
So check me out there. I'm going to be streaming a lot of Overwatch. I generally mostly play offensive heroes. Love Tracer.
Because he's so good at him.
I don't know about that. I gotta get better with my aim. My average accuracy on her is not where I want it to be. But check me out there, guys. And again, I always say this at the end of episodes, and there will be action behind the words, but we have a lot of really cool stuff in the background that's happening. An entire team that are working on some certain things for the community.
Yep.
And it's going to be a really big deal. And assuming that no one beats us to us, I don't think anyone will.
Not yet. I think
we're too clever. Our ideas are too clever, not
too smart, folks. Too smart.
And keep an eye out for that, guys. And I cannot wait to see the future of the community. I cannot wait to see the future of this game.
Yep, I'm right there with you, man. We do, like Gooch said, we have some stuff in the works. We're gonna do character breakdowns very soon. Top 5 clips. There's a lot coming, guys. It's just the Gooch and I having to deal with life, real life. He has a job. I am a father of 3, and
which is more than a job.
It's more than a job. It's 3 jobs technically.
Yeah.
And while still doing this, I do another podcast called Stormcast, which you guys can find at stormcast.com, stormcastshow.com. I stream 6 nights a week at twitch.tv, another Notch, and you guys can always find me on the Tweety Birds and Notch Plays Games. Don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this episode of The Watch, leave us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments down below. Tell us what you thought. Tell us what you think we need to change. My face is stuck like this. I can't change that. I don't need to hear any more of that. And I could drop a few pounds. I know, Reddit. I know. Thank you for the advice.
Yeah. Oh, and we will be, for little plans, we will hopefully in the future have some maybe recognizable players from the Overwatch community.
Yes, we will.
Whether it be casters or, team people from competitive teams and stuff like that. That is something we have in the works, so keep an eye out for that as well, guys.
Absolutely, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 3 of The Watch. You guys are all fantastic. Have a good night, and we will see you in game.